सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ सहनाववतु
सहनाववतु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
सह वीर्यं
वीर्यं
कर्वावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
मा
मा
विद्विषावहै।
विद्विषावहै।
ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति
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 शान्तिः।
शान्तिः।
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. So we are on the 45th verse of chapter 2. So let us just chant that. Shri Bhagavan
श्रीभगवानुवाच
त्रैगुण्य विषया वेदाः
त्रैगुण्यविषया वेदाः
निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन
निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन
निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः
निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वः
निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्
निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्.
Okay, so I'm just muting all of y'all. Now look at the grammar part. Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha. Then Nistraigunyaha Bhava, He Arjuna. Nirdvandaha Nitya Sattva Sthaha Niryogakshema Atmavan. These are the word breakups. And the Anvaya will be Vedaha Traigunya Vishayaha, full stop, one sentence. Then, He Arjuna, Nistraigunyaha Nirdvandaha Nitya Sattvasthaha Niryogakshema Atmavan Bhava. The second sentence. Okay. So, the first sentence is Vedaha Traigunya Vishayaha. The Vedas deal with three gunas. Three gunas are Rajas, Sattva and Tamas. Vishaya is the subject. So Vedaha Vishaya, the subject of the Vedas, are the three gunas. So we'll explain that. Hey Arjuna, Nistray Gunya Bhava. That bhava which is at the end, you have to add it to each of these, connected to each of these commandments. Nistray Gunya Bhava, Hey Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, be free from three gunas. Nirdvanda Bhava, Hey Arjuna. Arjuna, be free from dvandaha, the pairs of opposites, be free from duality. Hey Arjuna, Nitya Sattvasthaha, be ever established in Sattva. Sattva is the proper outlook, the contemplative outlook. Then, Hey Arjuna, Niryogakshema Bhava. Now, that's a particular, Yogakshemam is a technical word. Yoga here means acquiring, and Kshema here means protecting what has been acquired. So, Niryogakshema means be free from acquiring and protecting. And Atmavan, be attentive. So, hey Arjuna, the Vedas are the subject matter of the Vedas are the three gunas. And so Arjuna, be a person who is free from three gunas. Be a person who is free from the duality of the world. Be a person who is ever established in oneself. Nitya Sattvastaha. Be a person who is free from the activities of acquiring and protecting objects. Yogakshemavan. And therefore, if you are all this, what will you be? Atmavan. Atmavan is the person who is a master of himself. So it's a very, very important sloka. And it's the beginning of the discussion on Karma Yoga. So I said earlier that we had a few slokas which were the transition slokas between Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. And they gave some of this very important ideas also, like sloka number 38, 39, 40. All gave some very important ideas about Karma Yoga. But here he is talking about how to become a Karma Yogi. What is the personality of a Karma Yogi? What are the thinking patterns of a Karma Yogi? What are the objectives of a Karma Yogi? So Traigunya Vishayaha. Now here, these are all technical words. Traigunyam means the product, the three gunas. Traigunya Vishayaha. Traigunya Vishayaha means the products of the three gunas. Now remember that ultimately, when you say product of three gunas, the entire universe is a product of three gunas only, right? Because what is another name for three gunas?
Maya.
Maya. The entire universe is a product of Maya. Maya, which is nature, is three guna only. So one interpretation, a broader interpretation is that Maya itself is the world. And whenever you say three gunas, you mean the world only. But here, the specific context is there. What is the context? Vedaha. Vedaha here means the Karma Kanda part of the Veda. The earlier part of the Vedas. And I believe you all know that Veda has two parts, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. Karma Kanda is also called Purva Veda. And Jnana Kanda is also called Veda Antaha. So those are the words. Purva Veda, prior portion of the Vedas. Veda Antaha, later portion of the Vedas. How does the Veda, which is supposed to give you knowledge for moksha, how do you say that it becomes Traigunya Vishaya? So Traigunya Vishaya here is not Maya. Very strictly speaking, it is all the products of the world, all the objects of the world. In our context, it talks about all the material goals, because we know that Purva Veda, that is the Karma Kanda, it deals with fulfillment of materialistic desires. So Veda is one entity. It can be Purva Veda, it can be Jnana Kanda. And Shankaracharya says in his commentary that for people who are avivekis, people who do not have the discriminative ability, what is discrimination? Sattvaboda.
Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka.
Permanent, impermanent.
Nitya and Anitya. Right. Whenever we say Viveka, understand that it is a difference between, we know the difference between Nitya and Anitya, permanent, impermanent. So people who do not have that knowledge, who do not have the discriminative power, the Veda becomes Traigunya Vishaya. It becomes Purva Veda only, which means that people who cannot distinguish between permanent and impermanent, they ignore the portion of the Vedas which deal with the permanent, which is Atmana Brahman, which is Jnana Kanda. Having ignored that portion, they focus on that portion which appeals to them, which is what? Karma Kanda only. Karma Kanda has lots of rituals dealing with fulfillment of material desires. And that he says Vishaya, all the subject matter of material accomplishments. Okay. Now here it's important to add that Veda does not look down upon material accomplishments or sensory pleasures, right? If it did, it would not talk about them in such great detail. The Purva Veda, the Karma Kanda part, deals with great length upon rituals which give you material accomplishments and sensory pleasures. But here, by saying this, Krishna is hinting that for all these material accomplishments, which under the four Purusharthas, they will fall under Artha Kama. So we have Artha Kama, Dharma, Moksha as the Purusharthas. But the Karma Kanda largely deals with Artha Kama Dharma. Okay, and here he is hinting that any Artha Kama, which means any material accomplishments, what do you need? You need karma, you need action. The moment that you enter into karma, you have chosen karma phalam also. And karma phalam is samsara. And Krishna is hinting to Arjuna, why do you need to work specially for samsara, Arjuna? There is enough already for you. So here, the very important, hint is there. Normally, people say that karma kanda is meant for material accomplishments, for worldly pleasures. But that statement, Krishna is saying, is not really correct. Because karma kanda has got various types of karmas. So, you have, for example, kamya karmas. Kamya karma means karmas which are born out of desire. So kama is desire. Kamya karmas are karmas meant for fulfilling kama, fulfilling desires. That is very much there in karma kanda, and therefore you cannot say that karma kanda looked down upon it. Then you have praschita karmas. Karmas meant as penance for some error which you have committed, for some papam which you have committed. There are karmas which neutralize the effect of the papa. Then nitya karmas, karmas which are born out of your standing in life. If you are a brahmana, you got certain karmas. If you are a kshatriya, you got certain karmas. If you are a vaishya, you got certain karmas. If you got a shudra, you got certain karmas. So born out of your varna. Those are nitya karmas. Then there are naimittika karmas. So remember, these are all nitya karmas, for example, are mandatory commandments. That is why called nitya, always there. As long as you are a jiva with a particular varna ashrama, these karmas are mandatory for you. So nitya, permanent karmas. Then there is naimittika karma. So naimitta is from the word nimittam. Nimittam is occasion, is the whenever the occasion occurs, whenever there is a cause. Nimittam literally means cause. Naimittikam means arising from the cause. So naimittika karma are when there are karmas which are not regular karmas, which are not nitya karmas, but which are related to certain occasions, right? For example, marriage. Now, in Indian society, attending a marriage is a mandatory karma, naimittic karma. Getting your child married is also naimittic karma, because whenever the child is particular age, that marriage has to be done. Going for funerals, naimittic karma. Going for somebody's birth date, naimittic karma. So karmas arising out of a particular occasion is called naimittic karma. So kama karma, praschita karma, and nitya naimittic karma. These are three major karmas covered by karma kanda. Also, one more karma is covered. Nisheda karma, prohibited karma is also covered. Right. So these are the areas where karma kanda talks about various types of actions. I hope this distinction is clear, because this is a basic division of all karma: kamya, praschita, nitya naimittika, and nisheda karma, or nishiddha karma also is called. Now, if a person is looking for chitta shuddhi, supposing you are looking for chitta shuddhi, you are a Vedantic seeker, which of these karmas are useful for you?
Nitya naimittika.
Nitya naimittika, right? Kama karma is of no use to you, because you got an objective, kamaha, fulfill your desires. Praschita karma is of no use to you. You are trying to, do some penance, do some rectification of some damage done by you earlier. Nisheda karma, of course, is of no use to you. Prohibited karma. Therefore, the only one which remains what? Nitya naimittika karma. And this nitya naimittika karma is to be done with a certain attitude. Prescribed by Veda means prescribed by Ishvara. And we'll come to that. And therefore, the word Veda in this sloka, Vedaha, the karma which has been prescribed by the Vedaha, In this particular sloka, remember that we are not talking about kamya or prashchita, because kamya karma and prashchita karma and nisheda karma are of no utility to a person who is looking for chitta shuddhi. Right? But Vedaha here is referring only to kamya and prashchita karma. What Krishna is saying that people who are engrossed in karma kanda, you should not be one like that. Therefore, one should not use kamya karma and prashchita karma if you are a mumukshu. If you are a person who is a seeker, you should renounce kamya karma, prashchita karma, and of course, nisheda karma you have to renounce. Why? Because as a mumukshu, you are looking only for what? Chitta shuddhi. And only nitya karma and naimittika karma can give you chitta shuddhi. Only by getting chitta shuddhi you can come to jnanam. Only by coming to jnanam you can be released from samsara. And therefore, any sadhaka should renounce kamya karma and prashchita karma. Now, what is meant by that statement, one has to be very carefully understanding. Do I totally renounce kamya karma and prashchita karma? No. The advice is that the same karma, the same action. Now remember that the same action can be made to have a favorable result by changing the motive for the action. So the same karma, kamya karma and prashchita karma, one should not use for fulfilling your worldly objectives. The sankalpa needs to be changed. Right? But to put practical terms, supposing I have a job, does it mean that I should not work towards success in my job? Does it mean that I should not pay full attention to my job? No. As a karma yogi, every job has to be done with a lot of focus by you. Therefore, you should continue to focus on your job, do everything with proper attention. But your objective will be, you will not go to the temple and say, "Oh Lord, please let me get my next promotion." Don't pray for your success. The karma yogi renounces kamya karma by changing his sankalpa, by changing the objective for which he is working. The same karma, the same action can be used for chitta shuddhi. You should not pray for success. And therefore your prayer becomes yad yad bhavyam bhavatu bhagwan purva karmanu rupakam, which means yad yad bhavyam, whatever is to happen, hey Lord, bhavatu bhagwan. Bhavatu means let it happen. So yad yad bhavyam bhavatu bhagwan, whatever is to happen, oh Lord, let it happen. But to add a rider, purva karmanu rupam, in accordance with my previous karma. Right? So you're telling the Lord that don't give me random results. You don't have to tell him. He will not give you random results. But you're just reminding him, I accept whatever is going to be the result of my actions, O Lord, and let the results be in accordance with my previous karma, prarabdha karma. So the advice is not to use Ishvara as a solver of my problems, as somebody who resolves my problems. Just use him for mental strength. So instead of praying that, Lord, give me success in this, let this be all right. The prayer should be, let whatever happen in the form of prarabdha karma result only Ishvara. Please give me the mental strength to bear that result. So that is this particular prayer. Yad yad bhavyam bhavatu bhagwan purva karmanu rupa. Whatever has to happen will happen in accordance with the law of karma. I don't want to interfere. But please give me the strength to bear whatever is my karma phala. That is the prayer. And therefore, hey Arjuna, what should a karma yogi do? Krishna is saying that. Because of all this discussion, what should be the action of a karma yogi? Nistray gunyo bhavaha. You should not be obsessed with material pleasures. And where are they all mentioned? In the Vedaha. Vedaha deals with the three gunas, and lot of material pleasures are mentioned, lot of rituals are mentioned, lot of pujas are mentioned. So one should not do them all from with the objective of getting those material pleasures. Okay. We are not recommending that you should become a stone. Material pleasures like entertainment, music, dance, drama, all this, TV, all this have their role, right? They have their role in life because they provide a little relaxation. But I should not forget what is the primary goal of my life. I should not make entertainment and music and travel the primary goal of my life and make my spiritual journey the secondary goal. The spiritual journey, that moksha, should always be primary. Everything else has to be subservient to that moksha. So you have to decide, like when you eat, for example, you have to decide, am I eating roti with sabji or am I eating sabji with roti? Which is the primary one? Is roti the primary one and sabji the dish, or is sabji the primary one and roti the dish, the side dish? If this priority is not clear, then I am in trouble, right? So Veda, the scriptures, Artha and Kama, they are accepted as part of your life. Veda says they are legitimate. But you cannot dedicate your life to the pursuit of only Artha and Kama. Dharma and moksha are always primary also, but all the time I cannot pursue dharma alone. And therefore I require vihara. As Krishna will say in the 6th chapter, vihara is required, the recreation. Right? What Krishna is saying here is, be very clear in your life whether money and pleasure is important, or Gita study is important, or dharma is important, or puja is important, or prayer is important, or dhyanam is important. Which is the primary portion of your life? You be clear. And he says, let arthakama always be secondary to moksha. Moksha should be primary goal of your life always. Every other goal which can be classified under arthakama should be the subsidiary portion of your life, should be the subsidiary goal of your life. So this is the first advice, first instruction that Krishna is giving. What is the second Krishna instruction? Shankara says that when Krishna says Nistraygunya Bhavaha, he means Nishkama Bhavaha. Be without passion. Whatever you do without that obsession with the result. And the second piece of advice is also here, Nirdvanda Bhavaha. So Dvanda means duality. Anything in two is called Dvanda. So Dvanda here means opposites. Anything which falls in the class of opposites, opposite experiences, that also you should learn to be resistant to. What are opposite experiences? Heat and cold, joy and sorrow, comfort and discomfort, healthy body, sick body. These are all called dvandas, the pairs of opposites. And how do they work? The arrival of one of them makes you happy. The departure of the other one makes you unhappy. Right? Arrival of, let us say, comfort makes you happy. The departure of comfort or the arrival of the other one makes you unhappy. This is the way that Dvanda works. Comfort arrival makes me happy. Discomfort arrival makes me unhappy. Discomfort departure makes me happy. Comfort departure makes me unhappy. This is what is called Dvanda. Okay. And in tradition, in our tradition, all of you must be knowing that when your life is full of ups and downs, then there is a practice which is again there in Karma Kanda. It's called Parihara Karma. Pariharam is a solution. And Pariharam is normally by way of some prayer, some puja. So here is where priests are there, astrologers are there, and sometimes tantrics are there. Everybody has his own pet version of parihara karma. But the question is, I'm not discussing whether parihara is wrong or right, whether it was done or not. What I'm saying is that if for everything in my life I am going to do parihara, right? Some promotion has been missed, so I call the priest and do a puja. Somebody has fallen sick, I do parihara. I've got a muscular bite, I do parihara. For every down portion or part of my life, the ups and downs, for every down part of my life, if I am going to do parihara karma, the problem is what? Lifelong, I will be doing only this parihara karma. There are so many problems. And every problem, I am going to do only parihara karma. I will have time for nothing else. So actually, practically, it may not be possible to completely dispense, especially for a Vedika who believes in Shastram. It's not possible to completely dispense with this pariharam, with this pujas, to ward away evil times. But do it only for the major things in your life. Otherwise, use the minor difficulties to strengthen my personality. Don't go running to the priest or to the temple every time some problem comes. Use them to convert your, weak mind, to immunize your mind, to strengthen your mind. Use them to convert the weak mind into a strong mind. That is what is meant here. Learn to transcend the opposite experiences. Nirdvanda bhavaha. Learn to accept the pairs of opposites. Their problems will be there. Don't go running for a solution. Don't go crying to the Lord or to the priest or to the tantric. Strengthen your mind, toughen your mind. Learn to accept the pairs of opposites. Right? So we say when the times are tough, the tough get going. Get that attitude. I will face whatever comes. So being nirdvanda here should not be understood as that opposite experiences will go away. It is to be understood that my mind is prepared to accept both success and failure. I like success. I don't like failure. And Krishna is saying here that don't pray for success, which is what all of us do. All our prayers are artharthi prayers. We always pray for success. But he is saying don't pray for success. Pray instead for the mental strength to accept whatever comes. You should be prepared to receive failure as well as to receive success. So there is a story, very heavy topic, so I should put a story over here. So there was this businessman, he used to ship goods from India to foreign countries. Okay, and he was a rich person. So one day, when he was sitting in his office, his subordinate came running and said, Sir, our ship has been lost in this town. So he said, What? He started shouting. Okay, so that was the attitude, which is the attitude of all of us. Problem comes, start shouting, get disturbed. So what? Then, seeing that disturbance in his mind, when he went home, the disturbance was very much present in his mind. So his wife, who was a sensible lady, she said that, this is not good for you. You will get blood pressure very soon. He said, I can't help it because, the ship has gone down. So many thousands of rupees have been lost. How can you say I should not get disturbed? So being a wise lady, she took him to one Swamiji. That Swamiji decided to talk to him about some Vedanta. And strangely enough, like most of you, who didn't want to come to Vedanta class but now find it interesting, this businessman also found it very interesting. And then he began to attend the classes regularly. So 2 years, 3 years passed. He became very strongly established in Vedanta. Right? Then we go back to the previous scene. He's sitting in his office and the subordinate comes running and says, "Sir, sir, we have lost a ship in this storm." What did he say? He said, "So what?" So the transition of a Vedantic is from what to so what. So that is the story. That is what Krishna is saying. Stop saying what all the time. Learn to say, so what? The change is not just in the two words, one word or two words. Change is in the approach to the whole problem. What means huge disturbance of mind. So what means no disturbance of mind. That's the essence of this particular verse. And before we finish this verse, there is something else, which is what some people say. Some other people, some other acharyas or some other books, you will see them saying, taking a separate, different interpretation for the word Nistraigunyaha. Nistraigunyo Bhava Arjuna. They will say Krishna is saying, hey Arjuna, Nistraigunya Bhava means transcend the three gunas, go beyond the three gunas. Going beyond three gunas means becoming Jivan Mukta, attaining Brahman. Why is this interpretation not correct? Because if you look at the verse itself, in the first line he is saying Nistraigunnya Bhavarjuna. Right? If he is going to say that become Jivan Mukta, then the very next line, the first two words are what? Nitya Sattvasthaha. Be established in Sattva Guna. Do you see the contradiction?
Yes.
What is the contradiction?
We have to rise above the three gunas and then saying that.
Establish yourself Sattva Guna.
Correct. So there is a contradiction. Now this is how you should read the verse. Because when he says Nistraigunyo, if he is saying that go beyond the three gunas, then he cannot be saying Nitya Sattvasthaha, be established in three gunas. There is a straight contradiction. Right? And therefore that understanding that Nistraigunyo Bhava means transcend three gunas is wrong. It means what we have just discussed. Right? That is why Shankara says Nistraigunya means Nishkama Bhavaha. Become free of passion. Do all works with a bit of dispassion. Okay. So this Nitya Sattvastaha, this being established in Sattva-guna, remember it is the result of Nirdvandatvam. If you have learned to transcend or learned to accept whatever comes, which is what is meant by Nirdvanda. Nirdvanda means whether good comes, whether bad comes. Whichever opposite result comes, what should you do? Nitya Sattvastaha. That is the meaning. Nirdvandaha, because of being the same in the face of opposite results, therefore Nitya Sattvastaha. Therefore, may you be established in Sattva Guna always. Sattva Guna means inquiry, viveka, discrimination, jnanam. And the more Sattva Guna you have, the tougher is your mind. Your mental toughness is directly proportional to the amount of Sattva Guna that you have. Okay. Then comes Niryogakshemam. Okay, this is a very, very important word. And for this, we have to look at the Shankara Bhashyam only, because by itself, it makes no sense. Yogakshemaha. So Shankara says that Yogaha is, I will not give you the Sanskrit words. Yoga is acquiring what I do not possess. Right? So if you want the Sanskrit word, Shankara says, Anupatasya upadanam. Anupatam means that which I do not have. Upadanam means to acquire. So he says, Yogaha is anupatasya upadanam, acquiring what I do not have. And Kshemaha is upatasya rakshanam, protecting, rakshanam, what I have already have, upatasya. Very, very important definitions. So yoga means acquiring what I don't have. Kshemaha means protecting what I have, right? And remember, there are 4 aspects. In this Yoga Kshema, there are 4 aspects. Yoga Kshema is a very, very important word. It is all our actions in life are meant for what? Acquiring what I don't have, acquiring something and protecting that something. That is why whole life is defined as Yoga Kshema. And here, what is Krishna saying? Nir Yoga Kshema. Arjuna, you should not get into this activity at all. Do not acquire. And if you do not acquire, then there is no question of having to protect what you acquire. To understand this properly, this Yoga Kshema consists of 4 things or 4 aspects. Possessions, right? Whatever I possess, my house, my wealth, my reputation, all those things, possessions. Then obligations. These obligations arise of what? Arise out of what? Relationships. So I have possessions and I have relationships with my father, mother, wife, children. Each of those relationships gives rise to certain obligations. So now we have 3 things: possessions, relationships, obligations. And because of those obligations, what do I have? I have transactions. So possessions, relationships, duties, and transactions. These 4 things combined together, they are called Yoga Kshemam. And when Krishna says Nir Yoga Kshemam, he's saying reduce each of these 4 things. Reduce your possessions, reduce your relationships, and therefore reduce your duties, your obligations. And by doing all this, the transaction in this world will reduce. What is an example for Yoga Kshema? Very simple example. Getting married is yoga. What is Kshemaha?
Maintenance.
Safeguarding.
Making the marriage work. Working in the marriage is Yoga Kshema. Very simple. And that example can be applied to all your activity. Acquiring something is buying a house is yoga. Maintaining the house in good shape is Kshema. All problems in life are related to what? These 2 activities only. Acquisition and maintenance. So Yoga Kshemaha only is all activities. And when Krishna says Nir Yoga Kshemaha, may you reduce all these activities so that you have no anxieties arising out of any of these activities. And may you be free. Only if you are free of anxiety will your mind be free for Atma Vidya, for self-knowledge. And if you are such a person, Atmavan, you are a master of yourself. The mind is always in your control. So be alert in your life. Do not lead a mechanical life. Lead a deliberate life. Let there be objective in your life. Let your mind be free of Yoga Kshema. Reduce all those 4 aspects of Yoga Kshema. And Shankara adds very, very wisely in his commentary, I am not asking you to renounce all karma. He says, Swadharma anutishtata. Continue to do your Swadharma. Your Nitya Naimitika karma, you must continue to do. That you cannot avoid. So the introduction is there for Karma Yogi. Any question we can take, and we can do one more verse before closing for the day.
Sir, when it comes to the Naimitya karma,
Yeah.
why is it important for Chitta Shuddhi? Because on the other side, Krishna talks about Niryoga Shemam. So we have to reduce our not reduce, but I mean for the relationship aspect. Today's society, as we are aware, if we go to a marriage, obviously there are more things than what it used to be earlier. When we go to even a funeral, the attachment towards funeral we still understand, but a marriage or a celebration, if one chooses to avoid it for his chitta shuddhi, to avoid a certain amount of company, I would like to know your what the shastra says.
Avoidance of something is never a solution. By avoiding something to give chitta shuddhi, you are shifting the burden onto the external world. External world can never give you any help. The primary thing is here, like when I point one finger at you, how many fingers are pointing at me?
Yeah, 3 fingers are pointing.
So remember that taking responsibility for everything is one of the essentials of Karma Yogi. Unless you accept that any change is only I am responsible for, and therefore I am responsible for my chitta shuddhi. If you have relationships, let us say somebody is getting married who's a good friend, avoiding that marriage is not going to help you. I mean, not going there is just running away from your duties. Go there with the proper attitude. Go there because it will make your friend happy to see you there. It is a very unselfish attitude to go with. And you will find that Shastra does not tell you don't enjoy yourself. Last thing that Vedanta says is don't enjoy yourself. And you will find that a Vedantic is always smiling because he has nothing to be disgruntled about. He has nothing to be unhappy about. And marriage which you attend is an occasion for him to laugh and smile at the good fortune of his friend and wish him all the best. Where is the question of affecting a chitta shuddhi? It is not.
Thank you, sir.
Raviji?
Yeah.
Actually, this just came to my mind. Like I remember my grandfather, and in that generation when they meet at each other, they used to ask each other about Yoga Kshema. So what exactly it meant for them?
I don't know the context, so I can answer. But Yogakshema basically means acquisition and maintenance. And if they require answering a question like that, probably means, are you doing well in your life?
Health.
Yeah. Health-wise, wealth-wise, are you doing well? That's what it means, possibly.
Acharya-ji?
Yeah.
Atmavan means having chitta shuddhi.
Atmavan means a person who is master of himself, whose mind is under his control. One, the suffix one, used for what in Hindi? Balavan, Dhanyavad,
Blessed with.
Dhanavan.
Having.
Endowed with.
The one who has.
Possessor of.
Possessor of. Atma here is not Atma, Satchitarna. Atma here is mind. So here it means the one who has the mind, to be understood as the one who has the mind under his own control.
Okay. Thank you.
Om Raviji.
Yes, Samana.
Yeah, so Yoga Kshemam Vahamyam we'll be doing later, or should we talk about it now?
No, that's a different verse where he says that for a seeker, Yogakshema Vahami Aham. I will take care of your Yogakshema. You don't have to worry. That's a different context.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank
you. Okay. Right. So then let us chant verse number 46, which will be the last verse for today. Yavan artha udapane.
Yavan udapane.
Sarvatah samplutodake. Tavan sarveshu vedeshu. Brahmanasya vijanatah. So yavan artha, that word is to be broken. Yavan with a halant. Artha udapane sarvatah samplu todake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. The Anvaya becomes Yavan Sarvataha Samplutaha, but Samplutodake can be broken up further. Sampluta Udake. Sampluta Udake. Udapane Arthaha, comma, Tavan Vijanataha Brahmanasya Sarveshu Vedeshu. That is the Anvaya. And let us look at the meanings. Brahmanasya, for the person, here it is not Brahman, Varna Brahman. Varna Kshatriya Brahman, it is not. Brahmanasya means for the person who knows himself as Brahman. So Brahmanasya Vijanataha, for the person who knows himself as Brahman. Sarveshu Vedeshu, all the Vedas here means what? All the statements of the Vedas, all the rituals given in the Vedas. Tavan Yavan Arthaha are as much use. Udapane. Udapane is a small little lake or a pond. As a small pond where Samplutaha Udakaha Sarvataha. When there is Samplutaha, flood, Udakaha, water, Sarvataha, everywhere. So he is saying that for a person who is a jnani, Brahmanasya Vijanataha, the Vedas are as much use to him as a small pond of water is of use to anybody else when there is a flood of water everywhere. Right? So this is a very beautiful thing. For a wise person, the benefits available in the Vedas are of as much use as the benefit available in a pond when there is a flood everywhere. Which means what? The Vedas are absolutely no use to that person. Because when there is a flood everywhere, when there is water everywhere, what use is a pond to you? Because you won't go to the pond, water is there with you anyway. Just step out of the house and there is a flood, there is water. What is he saying? See, based on the 45th verse, there can be a question, right? I am doing karma for what purpose? For karma phalam. Any karma I do, I am looking for a particular objective, for a particular consequence, and that is why I do karma phalam. If, as you say, oh Krishna, I don't need karma phalam, I don't have to ask for karma phalam, then why should I do karma at all? That is the question. Remember, this is all leading up to the definition of a karma yogi. So Krishna here is replying that if you don't ask for karma phalam, will there be no karma phalam? That is the question. The question is, if you are doing some karma, there is going to be karma phalam. If you are asking for karma phalam, then that asking is covered by the Vedic rituals. Because supposing I want a child, then something called Putra Kameshtu Yajnaha, right? It's a homam. So it's a particular ritual. In that ritual, I pray to the Lord asking for a child, and a child is given. So what is there? Karma is there. What is the karma? Doing Putra Kameshtu ritual. What is the karma phalam? A child is the karma phalam. So when I do a karma asking for a particular benefit, Veda says, yes, you will get the benefit. But going by the previous verse, Arjuna might get a doubt. All karma is meant for karma phalam. So if I don't ask for karma phalam, it means I will not get karma phalam. So why should I do karma at all? It's a natural doubt. So Krishna here is saying that no. Every karma will definitely have a karma phalam. That law of nature cannot be broken. So if you don't ask for a karma phalam in any karma, that same karma will give you with a different karma phalam. Will benefit you, will bless you with a different karma phalam. And that karma phalam is Chitta Shuddhi. So when you don't ask for material benefits, you will still get benefit. That benefit will now be Chitta Shuddhi. It will be spiritual benefit. Right? So there are some conditions here which are only for people like us who are in, my wife's language, weirdos. You weirdos over there who sit there every morning asking for Chitta Shuddhi and Jivan Mukti, such people we are. Such people, there are some conditions. Reduce kamya karma, reduce prashchita karma, indulge in those karma which is meant for the good of other people. So loka sangraha, which is otherwise called nitya naimittik karma. So the prescription for us is to reduce kamya karma, reduce prashchita karma, do not do nishida karma, and do only nitya naimittika karma. And Krishna here talks about the reward for such a karma yogi. Why? Because he's trying to motivate Arjuna into becoming karma yogi. And once you see the benefit of karma, you see a benefit there, then of course, as a karma yogi, I will put a lot of effort into maintaining that goal of my life. So karma yoga is an alert life. And certainly there is a lot of effort involved in becoming karma yogi. And to put all that effort, something must be there as a reward, right? And if the reward is not there, then why should I make an effort? Which is the question that was asked. Why should I make an effort if there is no reward? And Krishna says, it doesn't matter if you are not asking for something, there is still a karma phalam. And that karma phalam is moksha. So here, this particular verse is the definition of moksha. So he is saying the fulfillment that a person enjoys through jnanam is a infinite fulfillment. And in anything infinite, all finite things are included. So the flood, the example of the flood, sarvataha samplutaka udake, flood, waters everywhere, that is infinite benefit. And the pond, udapani, the pond is a finite benefit. So he's saying that in the infinite is already included. And through all your worldly achievements, which are what? Money, status, position, children, wife, grandchildren, all these will definitely give you certain amount of fulfillment, certain amount of ananda, certain amount of bliss. But when you are seeking moksha, remember that you may think that you are renouncing all these things, but you are not really losing anything. Because in moksha, all worldly pleasures are already included in moksha, and therefore you are not missing anything. So in dharmartha kama, purushartha, moksha is not included. But in moksha, dharmartha kama is already included. So udapanam here means a small pond or a lake. Sarvataha saplutodake means flood waters everywhere. And he's saying certain benefits will be available in a finite manner. A limited prayojanam, limited benefit is there. All those benefits, tavan arthaha, all those benefits can be obtained in that sampluta udake, in that flood waters also, because water is already there everywhere. And so he says, Sarveshu Vedeshu Yavanartha. In the entire Vedas, ritualistic portion of the Vedas, which means what? Karma Kanda, which means what? Kamya Karma, Prachita Karma, all those things. What are the benefits? Dhanyam, Dhanam, Pashum, all the charity, all the lots of children, lot of wealth. All these are there provided in the Karma Kanda of the Vedas. And they provide pleasure to you. But he says all that pleasures are also gained Vijanata Brahmanasya, by the person who has achieved Brahmanaha, who has achieved Moksha. So Brahmana has to be understood as a Viveki who has got Moksha. So this particular verse is the definition of Moksha. And it is giving the picture that when you choose Moksha, all the scriptures tell you renounce everything else. But really remember that there is no renunciation at all. In the infinite, finite is never renounced. Finite is always included in the infinite. And therefore, Arjuna, moksha should be your goal, not artha kama dharma. So with this, we'll stop here. Any questions?
So
Yeah, please go ahead.
does this word Brahmanasya tell us that the moksha is the goal for it? Brahmanasya.
Brahmanasya Vijanataha means a person who's understood that he is Brahman. So
The
that is
essence of
moksha.
the Vedas, that is.
No, a person who has understood that is Brahman means that he has got Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti is nothing but understand. Jivan Mukti or moksha is nothing but understanding that I am Brahman, which is the essence of the Vedas. Vedas says that Tattvamasi, you are Brahman. And that is understood as Aham Brahmasmi. That Aham Brahmasmi is the essence of all the teaching of the Vedas. It can be condensed into one simple compound word. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So I know the concepts are still very tricky. So if you understand it, good. If you don't, as and when we unfold, you will understand. By the end of the second chapter, sorry, the end of the second chapter, you'll have a fair idea of what is Atma, what is Anatma, what does it mean to get moksha. And then we'll build on that in third and fourth and fifth and sixth chapters. Okay, so if there are no more questions, we can wind up today. Thank you for your patience. So let us chant the closing prayers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you.